All right. Another recap pod here. Bo Robert Ruud is in the his house. No wine, just sparkling water today. We could have been popping champagne because Nebraska got a win yesterday. We're taping this on a Sunday afternoon. First of all, you were at the game, correct, Amundo?
Yes.
One of the big storylines heading into the game was the sellout streak, and I was a little, even though, you know, they did the whole bought up the tickets, the red carpet experience, which is a great move by Trev Alberts and those guys. I was still a little nervous, like, okay, what's it going to look like on TV? Are there going to be large pockets that are empty? Like, is it a sellout or what's it going to look like? You tell me. On TV, I thought it looked really good.
There was no major like gaps in the seating. There was sprinklings,
okay,
maybe more than normal, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. Like it's amazing. You realize, like, once you get down there for the tailgate, that it's been 2 years.
2 years. Iowa Black Friday 2019.
Yeah. And so like the first initial feeling is this is amazing just to be amongst the people.
I know.
Right?
I was a little jealous. I was like,
you might have to come down next week just because of that. And then I got into the stadium, and I'm telling you, like, you know, somebody mentioned it's a little light, and I was like, I just didn't care. I was like, I was so happy to be there that like it was worth every second to be back in the stadium, to sort of just take it all in. The band, like, you're looking down, you see you're like, this is great.
Right.
So
it all comes back to you. The
does.
sounds, the smells, all that. Like, it just comes rushing back, I bet.
Yeah, it does. And we'll get into some of the something else I noticed kind of on that, Mark, like as the game went on, sort of like I'll talk about that later.
All right.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but it was great though.
Because I don't know. I was like that. I think Dirk even wrote about heading into the game. Like, one of the subplots of this game was kind of like, hey, what's the crowd going to look like? What's it going to feel like? I thought it came across well on TV. I wanted to get your thoughts being in the stadium. So that's good.
And the sellout streak, Trev Alberts is doing everything right now. I mean, he's
kind of killing it.
Yeah. That hire's starting to look better and better every minute.
Right.
But like, I think a lot of people were so frustrated with our first loss that I think the initial thing was, let's just end the streak almost. And then Trev saves the streak with this red carpet experience, which is to me, it's a hands down success, because it seems like, obviously you're bringing in new fans, kids that wouldn't have a chance to see the game. Like, what's better than that? So there's no way to complain about that to me. And I think now we win a game and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe keep the streak alive, So like, those are little things that I'm like, I really appreciated that. Like, we do got the streak still going, and
So you have Buffalo next week, then at Oklahoma, then you're at Michigan State, then it's Northwestern at home.
Yes.
If, let's say, Nebraska plays well, beats Buffalo, I mean, let's not get crazy and say they beat Oklahoma, but whatever. Let's say they go everybody walks away from that game like, damn, Huskers played pretty good today. And then they go win at Michigan State. I doubt then there's any consternation about, like, does anybody want to go to that game? You know what I mean? So like, there is this reality of, like, winning has a way. Yeah. Is the stadium too big? Yeah, it's probably too big. Could they make changes to make it better? Yes. All those kinds of things can be true, but at the same time, winning creates demand.
Exactly. And the demand right now, I think, is there's a $10,000 to $15,000 gap that if you went down to 70, there'd be people right now still like, I can't get a ticket. Right. And so we're not that far off. It doesn't need, like, we're not at the point where we need it to be 40 or 50,000. Like, it's still like that stadium was, call it 85% full. Right.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah. So it was on that end. It's like, I don't think we're like 50% capacity issue, right?
And so, okay, like, Nebraska wins 52-7. They beat Fordham, an FCS team. But I want to start just with a broad, like, this game, let's start here. This game served its purpose. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of different things. Number one, this program, this team, they needed a win. Mm-hmm. They got it. They needed to gain collective confidence from player 1 to player 90. They all needed to gain some confidence from success in a game. They got it. And the other thing that this program has needed, they've needed a good Saturday, right? Like they've needed a Saturday in the fall where the sun came up and the sun went down and everybody was feeling good, smiling, positive vibes around the team, locker room, program, fans, everything. Like they needed that and they got it. So to me, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the game, but like, in some ways, you can just say success because of those things right out the gates.
I think our state needed this in the worst way for so many reasons, right? Like you said, just from the football aspect, but other than that, it's like to go be around a bunch of other people that you haven't been around, like you haven't been around thousands of people, and to all collectively like have something good happen.
Right.
It just, you could feel it. You could feel everybody just being like a sense of relief almost that they've been waiting so long for it. So,
right. See, the other thing that I don't know if you had this feeling. I had this weird feeling when I saw the stadium on TV and sometimes there's this feeling because we've been detached from the collective Husker community for so long, to your point, like haven't all congregated at Memorial Stadium to all cheer and pull in the same direction. When you haven't been around that community of people, combined with some of the losses and the struggles of the team, your brain can do tricks on you of like, nobody believes in Frost.
Yeah.
Nobody's cheering for this team.
Yeah.
Go to those extreme places of like, no one is even in. Who is even in? We do this all the time. Like people, we act like no one even cares anymore.
No one cares, but there's 100,000 people.
But 100,000 people showed up.
100,000 showed up.
Does that make sense? Did you ever feel like that yesterday? Like almost like, oh yeah, people do still give a shit.
They do still give a shit, and you like it was a collective reminder that we love Nebraska football. Right. No matter what, we're gonna love it. We're always going to show up there because when you show up there, it's a part of your life. And that was the thing. It reminded me. It's like, yes, it's a part of your life, and it's great to just do the thing. Go to the game, cheer on your team, win or lose. That's what it's about. And you lose touch with that when you're not allowed to go.
Yes, when you're not around, when you're not physically around it. I'm talking physically there. You lose it a little bit.
No
Just
doubt.
like we talk long distance, you can FaceTime and Skype your girlfriend all you want, but bruh, sometimes you got to be with them.
I'll tell you what, there's a reason why long distance relationships after a while aren't so good.
No, because you need to physically be with.
Yeah.
You got to be with them. And in this case, there's been almost kind of like a long distance relationship with Nebraska football. Does that make sense?
I think,
it's like Frost and the team. They went over and they studied abroad in London.
They had a gap year. They were FaceTiming a lot.
You were on. Yeah. You needed it. And it was like, you picked them up at the airport and you had that airport like hug and kiss, right? But then kind of what it felt like.
They told you that they had like a friend that they met overseas. They spent a lot of time. You said, what? You went everywhere with this person? What? You think that's appropriate? I mean,
you are in London and you can do whatever you want to do, right? This is your time in your life to do that. But that's kind of what, I don't know if that's an analogy that makes any sense.
It got a little rocky.
It did.
But then they came back. And you're going on dates again.
That's it. And you're finally around again. So that was...
Took you out to dinner. They just took you out to dinner.
And it felt good.
A little restaurant called Fordham. And you got the full course meal.
You got it all. You got it all. Cocktails, dessert, appetizers.
And you know what?
You got it all.
The relationship's feeling a little bit better.
You walked out of that restaurant feeling pretty good.
You're building trust back because, you're not worried about that.
You're not worried about Owen from London.
What happened in London? We're going to leave it in London.
We're going to leave it there, right? It's ridiculous, but I kind of think it's a genius analogy. Okay, I wanted to start with that, but then before we get into, because I wrote down all the good things from the game. There's a lot of them. There were a lot of positive things to take from this game. We're also going to get into a couple of looming concerns from whether it's unanswered questions or things that we physically saw on Saturday. But I want to start with this. I entitled this the Jack Daniels moments of the game. So the game ends 52-7. Like if you didn't watch the game and you just checked the score, like 52-7 up, stress-free.
Yeah.
There were a few moments, especially in the first half and even early in the third quarter, that everyone almost reached for the Jack Daniels and was going to end up in detox in the drunk tank in the Lincoln Police Department. And then a play was made, something happened that allowed everyone to put the Jack Daniels down and not end up in detox.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of go through those and get your take, because we haven't even talked at all.
No.
The first Jack Daniels moment of the game was Fordham's first drive of the game. If we want to throw the first drive of the game, we can throw in there the fumble on the second play, but I'm just going straight to Fordham's first drive of the game. They're moving the ball. They get inside the 30-yard line. You're reaching for that Jack Daniels, like, oh, God.
Yeah.
And luckily, ball gets deflected. JoJo Doman, interception. Huge, because it felt like Fordham was going to get points on that drive. It felt like they were going to score a touchdown or for sure make a field goal, but instead Nebraska gets a pick, and then Nebraska goes down and scores a touchdown. First Jack Daniels moment of the game avoided right there.
Yes.
The second one, this was a little one, but Nebraska getting points after Fordham scored their touchdown to tie it at 7. You wished it would have been a touchdown if you're Nebraska, but nevertheless, you needed to respond.
Yeah.
First of all, you needed to kind of give your defense a break. You needed to drive the ball down the field a little bit, but you needed to get points on some way, shape, or form. You got it. It's 10-7. Because think if Nebraska goes 3 and out, punts it right back to Fordham, and it's 7-7. Everybody's like, oh boy.
Oh yeah.
The third one, and this is probably the biggest play of the game, was the blocked field goal. Think about what was the situation was. So Fordham was going to tie the game potentially at 10-10 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter. It was going to be tied with it almost to halftime. Instead, I think it was Deontay Williams that got in there.
I think Dismuke.
Or maybe it was Dismuke that got in there.
Dismuke in the paper today. So
boy, did that guy not. I mean, Fordham's guy stepped out and not down. I mean, that was like, if anything, Dismuke almost overran it.
Yeah.
And that was unbelievable. But okay, you get a blocked field goal, and then Nebraska goes on to score a touchdown. So it goes from tie. It would have been potentially tied at 10 to now 17-7. Big swing there.
And Nick, that to me is when the stadium changed its tune. So kind of what I was hinting at earlier is people were excited to be there, but there was a weird sense of being a little reserved. People were a little uptight. You could feel it. And the fumble, the first drive of Fordham's, the first score of Fordham's, those are moments where you could feel the crowd sort of revert back to you went overseas. You really, it's damn, you could feel the crowd pull back.
Right.
But then we made those plays, right? We made the plays to sort of put the Jack down, like you're saying.
Right.
And when we got to 17, you could feel the collective okay, we're in charge.
So you felt the stadium changed right
it
there.
Changed in the middle of that, I think second quarter kind of in there somewhere.
The block field goal was with about 7:50 left in the second quarter.
That to me is when I felt like the shift happened from we're being reserved to we can start cheering again. Right. And so and I, not to jump ahead too far, but they gave the team a standing ovation going into halftime. That was where I was like, whoa,
right.
People are coming around. So people stood up, stand up, cheer the team out. That was one of the loudest cheers they had was them running into almost louder than coming out was going in.
Well, think about that though, as they're lining up for that field goal. It's pretty amazing that that half ends with a standing ovation because they're lining up for the field goal and everybody is where's the Jack Daniels? Even the analogy I created the Jack Daniels, I was going to call it the Happy Gilmore putter throw. Remember when he tried to get better? He goes, "Here comes the putter throw." And he goes, and he stops and then puts it down in front. Way.
People have come a long way though.
But did it not feel like there was going to be the collective Husker football? Here comes the putter throw. And then they stopped and got it together. Yeah. But it is pretty amazing to contrast that moment with how the half ends with the standing ovation, because it becomes enormous. Because then what's crazy is Nebraska blocks a field goal, then goes score 17-7. Fordham drives the ball right back down the field.
Yeah. And
Deontay Williams gets an interception along the Fordham sideline with about, 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the second quarter. Again, Fordham was driving. Nebraska comes back onto the field. They drive the ball down and score a touchdown with 30 seconds left in the half. So now it's 24-7, thus becomes the standing ovation. But these little moments,
Nick, those are the ones that we have gotten wrong
every time
for 4 years.
Right.
For 4 years, when because the moments happen at the critical points in the game, and like they've kind of always gone wrong. And this was an example of when they go right. We're like a different kind of team then. We just haven't gotten those moments right or made the play to turn we just haven't found a way to do that. And to me, that first half was kind of like, whoa, that was the first time things went our way in those moments, right? And so
no doubt.
So it was really it was neat. It was just so needed is what it was.
Well, so then the last Jack Daniels, Happy Gilmore putter throw moment of the game was the defensive stand after the Cam Taylor-Britt muffed punt.
Yeah.
It felt like Nebraska was in complete control, but if Cam Taylor-Britt muffs the punt and then Fordham punches it in and it's 24-14, now that angst and that anxiety in the stadium maybe rises a little bit because it's a lot of the same old stuff. It's Cam Taylor-Britt, a special teams snafu, all that stuff. Right. But Deontay Williams gets his second interception of the game on fourth down in front of the Nebraska sideline. Could have been 24-14 if they go on to score, but instead Nebraska, their offense goes and scores again to make it 31-7. And by the way, the person who scored that touchdown was Chancellor Brewington. Chancellor Brewington. What that name?
He belongs in a northeastern
a special society that meets
secret society that
it's like, this is my friend Winston Bartholomew the First. You know my friend Barrington Bartholomew.
Our family has been in Rhode Island for so many years. We came over on the Mayflower.
Well, I mean, but Chancellor Brewington is he's probably got the best name on the team.
Yeah, what a name.
That is a hell of a name. He got moved to tight end basically right before the season started. He gets a touchdown. So he scores a 31-7 ball game from that, for sure, ball game. Now it's completely over. Everyone's feeling pretty good. But there were moments, even though you would just check that final score and think it was smooth sailing, No,
that's kind of where we're at, though. Is we have these, there's not that trust and confidence from, I don't think, the team or the fan base, right? So we're going to have to win. We're going to have to win a few games and find some more consistency. But I think before we get over this sort of here we go again, because we've never had 3 straight wins. We just haven't. So it's hard to believe that's sort of that we're okay, right? There's, we got a ways to go still, I think, before the team believes and the fans believe.
Totally. So were there any moments that you felt? I mean, I probably could have included the first drive of the game, especially the second play of the game being a fumble.
The fumble.
I mean,
Nick, we lose. I remember we jumped on the ball, but we almost lost that ball, Nick. I mean, we pretty much should have lost that ball. So that's where it's if you recover the fumble, it doesn't matter. But we fumbled and we about lost it.
Right. Well, what's even amazing about that first drive was Martinez picked up a 3rd and 18 running.
Great run. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was it was almost it was a bad first drive. It was almost a travesty of a first drive.
Yeah.
But there were moments in that game where things were a little, and they made the plays and they end up winning 52-7. Real quick, before we get into I have a whole bunch of good stuff. What changed did anything change defensively? Because it felt like Fordham was kind of moving the ball relatively easily early in the first quarter and a half, and then it kind of stopped. Did they just get worn down?
I think it's
what did you see?
Here's the thing with Fordham is they FCS, you were like, there's this team's terrible. I mean, they weren't like great or anything, but I think they had some players that were better than I think people realize. Like their quarterback, they basically said I think he was like the player of the year last year. Like he had either led FCS spring football in completion percentage or something like that. It was not a bad player for FCS. And then I thought their running back and they had a running back and receiver that were good players.
Right.
And we might have to talk about that middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Because that guy, I was very impressed. They had a handful of good players that, if you're not on your game, which I think our defense is a little sloppy in the first half, they executed on us. I'll give them that. They did a good job. So for me, it's more like I'll give them kudos for being prepared. Right. They had us game planned. Maybe we came back and cleaned it up for the second half. But yeah, they did a good job.
Because I'm with you. I actually, at one point, I will never divulge my notes I take during the game because boy, do I ride the wave at times. Like if someone read my diary, they'd be like, shit, we need to turn this guy into a mental. Like at one point I wrote down, this would have been late first quarter. I wrote down, how is it possible that Fordham has better skill players than Nebraska? Now that ultimately changed. I don't believe that. But at one point, I thought their running back seemed like he was every bit as good or better than any of Nebraska's running backs. And at one point, one of their receivers I thought was like as good as Toure. And now again, as the game wore on,
if it's not obvious at the start of the game, that's still an issue. Nick, the fact that you're even saying that,
I couldn't have been the only one that thought that.
No,
their running back, I was like,
I'd say, Nick, I'll say right now, our running backs, we have, because I don't know about you, like last night I watched a lot of football yesterday. I watched the Penn State, Wisconsin. I watched Georgia versus Clemson. I watched.
Did you watch Bama?
I didn't
First degree murder Miami.
You already know what's going to happen there with Bama, but I also watched Iowa,
Indiana,
and just a few other random games. And like, man, it's like when you see like running backs that are like, that are up there, like it's like, man, I'm just not seeing it right now.
The thing it's too bad for him. It's maybe good for Nebraska. I watching the Minnesota Ohio State game. You watch Minnesota's running back, Ibrahim or whatever.
Good player.
Fucking guy is. I'm like, that guy is on another stratosphere than all 5 or 6 of Nebraska's running backs.
Exactly. And I think we saw some positives out of the Nebraska running backs. Marquis Stepp gave us 100, which was good. And I thought there was a couple other little flashes, but we haven't seen a guy that can just like, we can say, here's the ball, go win us a game.
Right.
We haven't seen that yet.
No.
And that, like I said, when you're even considering is Fordham skill players better than ours, that's a big
the
fact you're considering it, that's an So
the fact that now you ride the wave pretty good during the games, but the fact that I even wrote that down in my notes is like, ooh.
But you don't know, Nick. You don't know for
sure. I wasn't sure if we'd have been playing. Can't play shirts and skins and be like, you just would have played white team versus red team, and you don't know who's who.
Yeah.
And you would have stopped the game at the end of the first quarter and said, you get to choose which running back you want. Which I think I would have chose a lot of Fordham's guys early on offense. Which is like,
Nick, I think called the parity in college football is better now than it's been in a long time. But that doesn't excuse it. Like Fordham is Fordham. We're Nebraska. It should be different.
Sure.
It should be noticeably different.
Should be way different. But so you went there. So let's get into the good things. We'll start since we're kind of talking about it. I wrote down Marquis Stepp had a good day. For as much as I'm not necessarily sitting here drooling over him. He's fine. He had 18 carries, 101 yards. He's a big guy that seems like he's tough to bring down. Has he taken that spot?
Not yet.
Okay.
What he showed is he was willing to break a tackle, and get some extra yardage. What I'm looking for is if you're a running back, one, you're hard to bring down, but 2, like you're going to make somebody miss. Like you're going to make the first guy miss, and you're not going to get tackled by one guy. Our 2 games in, and majority of our running backs haven't shown me that.
No.
Marquis Stepp showed a few plays, but like, you watch these guys from around the country, the guy from Minnesota, Ibrahim
or whatever. Yeah.
he's hard to tackle. He breaks
those are
tackles.
Ohio State guys that couldn't tackle him.
Yeah, and so that's where I'm like, you got to have guys that can make something happen, like without it just being wide freaking open. Like if we won't expect us to block these huge holes and nobody touches you, like it's gonna be a long year. Like you get the 1-on-1, you got to win sometimes as a running back. And these guys have, it's early. The O-line I think is struggling.
I
still.
agree.
But we need to see it at some point soon.
Yes.
Somebody needs to, or two guys need to emerge to be like dependable. Right now they're playing 6 guys. Like that tells me they're going, who wants it?
Especially because the other thing I wrote down too in my notes when I was riding the wave, Frost and his staff had said, I ride the wave.
Ride the wave
hardcore. But Frost and the staff said, we want a bell cow. We want one guy there.
Yeah.
So the fact that they are, I want to say the first 3 series, it went Gabe Ervin, Marquise Stepp, Sevion Morse. Like they were just Ramir Johnson got carries, Marvin Scott. Now, a lot of these was when they brought in Smothers and all that stuff. But like it's pretty telling that what they want. They want one guy. And the fact that they can't do that right now shows you that Monday through Friday, no one, and then even so far through 2 Saturdays, nobody's just taking the job and saying, I'm the man.
Yeah. And I feel like Gabe Ervin's a guy that the jury's still out on him because I feel like I've seen almost no holes for him. Like
I almost feel like, and maybe Gabe would be like, thank you. I feel like of all the running backs, he's had the worst running situations. Almost every one of his handoffs, carries, I should say, have been, there's penetration in the backfield. There's nowhere to go.
And I feel like he gets all his carries. Like we're inside our own 20,
right,
going out, and we're, and they know we're going to run. They're ready for it. Where I think the other guys like Morrison got a couple touchdowns, Stepp's got a couple touchdowns.
Right.
Like they're getting the ball going into the end zone. And like,
I feel like the situations have not helped Gabe Ervin at all.
Comes in, we've started poorly. He starts the game for the first 2 series and they're just loaded up on the run. So I think Gabe Ervin's the guy I really want to see in a game where it gets going. It opens up for him, and then I want to see what he could do because I think he's the guy if he can. Because to me, if he can get his feet under him,
right? But I would say I don't even feel like, and this sounds crazy. Through 2 games, I can't even assess him because he can't even. There's. It seems like every one of his carries, the dude is getting tackled immediately.
Yeah, there's
been no space for him to even show anything.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think it's fair to say Stepp has done the most with the time he's been, but I still wouldn't say, I think, the paper today was a little bit more like, I think, do we have our guy? And I'm
not ready to go there yet either.
No.
Because I think it also has to be telling that Gabe Ervin got the first 2 starts.
Yeah.
So clearly something has happened through all of spring and fall camp and the 2 weeks of game prep that this guy got the nod.
Yeah, but this is why these kind of games, I don't think people realize, is like when you got a team that's not really proven, especially like our offense, we need we really could use like 4 of these kind of games.
Oh yeah,
just like learn how to play, like find our guys, learn how to play together. Just find some chemistry and some firepower. Our offense could use 4
a bunch of those games.
I'm telling you,
no doubt.
So this week and next week, I think are crucial to the season. Getting wins and getting some a feel for what we are.
So I wrote down Stepp, and maybe what I wrote down next shouldn't be in here, but I think in all reality, I wrote down it was actually a pretty clean day. Yeah. There were only 2 penalties on Nebraska. Martinez didn't turn the ball over. Now they got the 1 fumble back, but Martinez didn't turn the ball over. Nebraska did have 2 turnovers, but one was Smothers on a spin where he got just like chiropractor.
Yeah.
and then
oh man,
did he not get spin? He got spun into a lower lumbar adjustment.
Yeah, I think Smothers had about 3 plays where it was like, And Logan Smothers is dead. There he goes again. The paramedics are on the field. Logan Smothers. They've got him back to life, and he's in the huddle.
We're talking about the one where homeboy for Fordham.
Yeah, Green Bomber. What's his name?
What was his name?
No, Greenhagen.
Greenhagen. I mean, dude, it was like, and it was the longest. Like,
I don't think
it was almost like when the gazelle and the lion are like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God.
Does the gazelle not see the lion? Like, why is he running into the lion?
Because you could tell he's not going to get there. Like, about 5 yards from the sideline, you go, he's not going to make it to the sideline.
He's not going to make it, is he? He's not going to make it.
Because he was running and the Green Bomber or whatever, I mean, just leveled him.
I mean, God.
But so between the lion gazelle moment and then the chiropractic
adjustment.
You have two moments where Smothers got smothered pretty good.
Got smothered.
But okay, sorry. So Nebraska had a pretty clean day overall, though, outside of the chiropractic adjustment, and then Cam Taylor-Britt. Like, what do we want to save that for the frustrating? Should we stay positive?
Let's go negative real quick.
You want okay? Let it.
I feel bad for Cam Taylor-Britt because this is his senior season.
He came back.
He came back to do this.
I know.
And it's unfortunate because you can't blame it on anything other than like, Cam, dude, you got to be ready to play the game. That's
like,
in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. So there's this weird part of me. It's like, because I wrote down, is he done?
Nick, it's going to be hard. If they put him out there, respect to him, because as a coach, it gets really hard because every time you put him out there now, it's your neck on the line, not Cam Taylor-Britt's, because that's showing that, like, that's your decision at that point. Like, a guy showing you he can't do it, and you're going to say no.
Right.
So I think he's done back there probably.
I think he probably is, because the other hard thing is, if you put him back out there, you got to also think about the message that sends the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Where certain guys can make mistakes and still get chances while other guys can't. Now, the question is, does Cam Taylor-Britt have enough equity, respect amongst that locker room that everyone understands, like, if Cam, does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
when that guy trots back out there, people go, yeah, we know.
I think he maybe does. But my issue is like, is he a good enough punt returner?
I don't think
it's worth it. I don't know that he showed me he's that good. Like, he's fine. I think he might be our best return guy, but I don't think he's that much better to be that bad at catching and making decisions back there.
Well, think about this now. I mean, I'm trying to remember what game would have. So he has a laughable mistake in the first game. He then has the muff punt in this Fordham game. And then in the Iowa game,
three in the last.
So 3 in the last. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 games, yeah.
3 times in the last 6 games, he has turned the ball over at punt return.
Yeah, I mean,
like, you can't. I mean, so as much as I'm with you, like, I don't know why I have this, like, I feel bad for Cam. Like,
I do, because he was willing to come back,
right?
And he came back to raise his stock and to do it for Nebraska. Like, I'll give somebody respect that, like, you did that for your teammates, for the state, and like, it's just been a rough couple games. Like, I think he's playing fine on defense, but he hasn't played great either.
No.
So this guy, like, I hope the end of his season goes awesome.
I do too. So far through 2 games, he's not played well.
Well, and it's just like, you feel bad because of, like, what he was willing, because he would have got drafted last year. He would have.
Right. To come back for this. So I'm with you. I think he's probably done back there. But then the problem is, like, I mean, since we're going there, we'll cross this off the list for bad later on. But, like, I mean, can Nebraska do better than Brody Belt? I mean, is Oliver Martin going to go back there? And Oliver Martin was just banged up for this game. And
yeah, I don't know. I
mean, because Brody Belt,
I always wonder.
Brody Belt's always back there at kickoff. Like Brody Belt's one of those guys that kind of sneaky has been back there returning kickoffs and stuff more than you think.
I think that's a trust thing. It's like, like when you always find out who the coaches actually trust, and he must be a guy that they go, God, I just
when in doubt, throw Brody Belt out there.
Yeah.
But because he bobbled one and luckily lost it out of bounds. So I don't know. That position is a mess right now.
Just bring back DeJuan Gross.
Oh, God. Bring back Gross. Bring back DPE. Bring back freaking somebody. I mean, that's a little concerning.
Yeah.
Overall, since we're talking about punt, even though special or punt return is a travesty, special teams overall had a better day.
Yep.
Blocked a field goal. Homeboy kicked touchbacks, which is what you want to see. Connor Colt made a field goal, made some extra points. That's good. Yeah. Punting wasn't great. It wasn't atrocious. Overall, you'd have to say special teams took us. I'm not saying it's great, but it took a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we need to get to where that's just normal. Like where you're like, special teams was fine, good, but we're not even like overly concerned with it.
I know.
We just need to get that's the norm.
Because anytime there's any special teams moment, everyone, I'd have to think that if you had like the blood pressure and pulse of the stadium, it's like beep, 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 beep. I mean, because it is stressful. Even an extra point, you're like,
I mean, his first extra point, Nick, if you would have said place your bets, I'm going, sorry, Connor. Sorry about this, Connor.
I will say to go back to sorry, Connor, but I'll take 100,000 on the miss, please.
Life savings. Connor Culp's missing this extra point. I know it's 10 yards, but I got a bad feeling.
Hi, welcome to the Sportsbook at Caesar's Palace. What'll it be?
Everything I have.
This will take this watch, my life savings, and my car outside, all on Connor Culp missing the extra point.
I've called the bank. They will do a reverse mortgage on the Connor Culp bet. So that's great. Hey, sir, this is a 10-yard extra point. I'm like, I know. I've thought about it.
Oh, that's what it felt like, though. I mean, when he first tried it out there,
I didn't feel good.
No way. Like
that's where all of us.
But that's where it was at mentally.
Where we're gonna mortgage our future on Connor Culp
missing a freaking extra point. One thing, hold on, real quick, back to Cam Taylor-Britt. He must be cursed because that ball bounced. First of all, bounced fast and that thing was like, spinners and like fireworks. That thing was like, just went straight at him. But so he feels a little cursed. But nevertheless, like, I'm with you. We got to get to the point where we're not talking about like, hey, he made us extra points. That's progress right there. That's great. Like, come on, what are we talking about? Right.
That's where we're at, though.
But overall, special teams took a step in the right direction.
Yes.
The next name I wrote down was Adrian Martinez. I thought Adrian played pretty well.
He looked more athletic just in his physical just presence than he's ever looked. He ran with confidence. Like he made some moves like you guys are Fordham and I'm not. And I was like, wow.
Well,
that was good. That was good.
I totally agree. I thought that his one scramble touchdown run was just like, okay, I'm just, I'm tucking this thing and I'm out running everybody to the pylon.
It was a good sign though. He had the presence of mind of like, I'm just going to get this first down, or I'm going to scramble and get the score.
Right.
And he was making decisions quicker. I feel like
now the pass even though the O-line, we'll get to them, their run blocking was a little shaky at times early in the game. He had a pretty clean pocket.
Better.
And you could see a couple times, especially a beautiful play was, you could see him go through his progressions and then hit Omar Manning in the little kind of they looked like they were in a zone coverage, and Manning was able to run with it a little bit, but you could see the comfort, the progressions. I just thought he just kind of got into he's a big rhythm guy. Like when he gets into a rhythm, you can like feel it coming, but he was 17 of 23, 254 yards and a touchdown. He had 8 carries, 33 yards, 2 touchdowns, and again, 0 turnovers. And the other thing, he's pretty good at the option.
Yeah, he's starting to look more comfortable there. His confidence in his running looks like it's going up to me.
Yes, But I'm with you. I thought every time he ran, he looked like 2018 Martinez to me. Like he looked pretty explosive.
It's almost like a swagger in his movements.
Right.
That to me, like I don't know how to judge that other than like I just know it when I see it. And I just could sense like, man, this guy's like he's running with some confidence, right?
Well, think about remember the South Alabama game, the first year, the first game of the second year. I could tell the first time he ran, you were like, that didn't look right. And whether it was he was too heavy or didn't have that intangible confidence when he ran.
Yeah.
There was a reluctancy, something.
Yeah.
Yesterday, he looked good when he ran the ball.
Yeah,
he looked confident. He had great body language.
In a weird way, the best he's ever looked running, even though he had the 75-yard touchdown last week, which is great. This week, he even looked a little bit better.
Totally agree. The next guy, Samori Toure, had a big day. Had a really, really big day. 8 catches, 133 yards. He had 3 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown. So he had 168 total yards from scrimmage. Clearly, and this is real, Samori Toure and Martinez have good chemistry. There's trust there. I don't know if Martinez has had a receiver that he's had chemistry with and trusted since Stanley Morgan, probably, because even Wandale ended up having to come to the backfield a lot. But
Wandale, remember, like the big talk we always had after Wandale transferred was the good and the bad. Wandale's awesome. He's tough. He was one of our favorite guys. But when you have to throw him the ball, he's just small. Like he's a small target, and it's hard. Like it's hard. You have to be really accurate the smaller a guy is,
right?
And you can kind of be like Toure makes it easier to get him the ball. So as a quarterback, when it comes to just throwing somebody the ball, you'd rather be throwing it to Toure than you would probably Wandale. So I think Toure is going to give Martinez some more comfort. I think it's a comfort thing.
The weird thing is, Toure, again, he looked good, but he's kind of an interesting player because he's not very fast.
He's like fast, but not like explosive fast.
Maybe that but he gets open.
He catches the ball.
But even on those options,
strong.
like when he gets those pitches, he scored. And I think this option wrinkle is good. You would be able to speak to this from a defense. Like that's probably something now every team, Buffalo has to spend a lot of time this week getting ready for that play.
And they have to, their calls are all going to have to be predicated on, well, we might run some more of this, So I like having that wrinkle because the defense has to change what they do, knowing that could come.
Right. But yeah, he's just a weird player. Like there isn't anything about him physically that wows you.
Yeah. He's not Omar Manning. He's way skinnier. He's not like a straight up burner, but he's just kind of good. Like
he's a good football player.
He's a good football player. And you can kind of just trust he'll catch it.
Well, and you made a comment in our season preview pod when we were talking about Oliver Martin. You were like, and so far Oliver Martin's, was really good in the Illinois game, but you made a comment of basically like, okay, listen, cool. You can run a good shuttle. You can run can you play football?
Yeah.
To me, that's Toure. Now I'm not saying Toure, we act like Toure's out there, he runs like a 5.7 40 or something like that. Obviously he's not, but you forget that it's still about being good at football.
Yeah.
And catching the ball.
Yeah. And knowing where to be,
right.
Where to be, how to get there. And, and he's a little bit elusive. He's not super elusive, but he's got a little of that wiggle. So yeah, he's just a guy we're so fortunate to have gotten because he makes our passing game go right.
The bottom line is they had a receiver go for 133 yards.
When's the last time
I'm trying to. Did they have a single?
Martin, I guess, had 100 yards.
Had 103 yards last week.
Last year, I don't know. We had one.
I would bet that they did not have a 100-yard receiver last year.
I'm almost going to bet more than I bet in the Connor Cole bet.
You'd like to parlay? Can we turn it into a parlay?
This
is something.
No receivers 100 yards last year. Feel pretty good at that.
I feel pretty good about that. But nevertheless, he had a good day.
Yeah.
And it's good to see there. It might sound cliche, but that whole trust and chemistry with a quarterback thing is real.
Yep.
And it seems like those two guys got it, which leads into the next thing I wrote down is kind of kind of offshoot of this is like, in general, it's still not great, but at least Nebraska through 2 games has shown some semblance of a downfield passing attack.
We've been talking about this for 2 full years of what we've needed ever since that first year with Martinez is if you don't get these safeties back and these corners off, it's hard to do anything because they're playing the short passing game. They're up in the run. They do not respect your threat to go deep, and it just makes it too easy to play defense. And you have to be able to do that.
And so Toure has shown that, he's not hitting any 80-yard bombs, but he's shown he can catch a pretty deep ball. Omar Manning caught a few of good length. Xavier Betts caught one late in the game. Oliver Martin, obviously, last week caught a couple of passes that were pretty deep. Austin Allen's caught a few. Alante Brown came in at the end of the game and made 2 really good plays. I'm not sure if you had left by the one on the pylon.
I saw the juke.
The juke was gorgeous, but then he had a touchdown that was called back because he caught it on the pylon and he got pushed out of bounds a little bit, but it was in traffic. It looked really, really good. But again, all those things, last year, they never threw the ball down the field. Yeah, and so at least through 2 games, they've shown just even a pulse in that department.
Yeah, I think the guys they're waiting on are, number one, it's Betts. Xavier Betts is the guy, when I'm picturing somebody running a deep post or just a go route, it's probably Betts first, Manning to be the other guy. I'm okay. The guys you just want to have once or twice a game, it's going deep, give them a chance to win one-on-one just 50 yards down the field. Get a pass interference or win. Those 2 guys can do it. They're still not at the point where I think they are comfortable enough to be out there a lot. So they're the guys I'm waiting on to kind of make the next step of you get to be out there in the field. Toure's out there every play. Lure or whatever is been playing a lot. Those 2 need to get into that rotation. With those guys and
Martin played a lot in the first game.
Yeah, Martin was out there the whole time. So between those 5 guys, right now we kind of have 2 or 3 guys that they trust.
Yeah,
they need 5 that they can play ball with.
Absolutely. And it's at least it's good to see they can throw the ball down the field. The one thing that's weird with Manning is I pictured Manning, and maybe I'm over analyzing this, but I pictured Manning being a guy that could win in traffic, but he's a body catcher. If he's not really, all of his catches have been, he's not a hands guy. It's pretty rare one-on-one, here it comes to, those are usually hand catches.
For sure.
But I'm with you. When I think of Nebraska sending a guy deep, you picture Betts and you picture Manning. Hopefully those guys kind of come on, but at least they've shown a semblance of being able to do that.
And I picture that Alante Brown,
he looked
Alante
good.
Brown and Will Nixon, the 2 guys, what Toure was doing in that option. I actually thought that would be those 2 guys doing it. So Toure actually the guy I'm surprised he's the guy doing it.
I didn't want to say that, but I kind of thought that with my little crumbles, little breadcrumbs of he's not very fat. Is he the best guy?
Well, no, he's not.
But he must be the only guy that has earned the trust of knowing how to. You've run option.
Yeah.
There probably is a little bit of understanding how to maintain that pitch relationship distance wise and all that. Maybe he's the only one that can do that. But I think there's got to be a more explosive guy that they could be pitching the ball.
There is, but they're also we can't be so situational. We're guess who's coming in? Betts is coming in to run the deep route. Or
here comes Alante Brown in motion
to come be the option guy. We need these guys to be out there that they can do multiple things and we can be multiple in our offense. So we can just go.
Right.
And so right now I think we're not there with those guys because to me, that's why Toure's running the pitch man.
That's a great answer and that has to be what it is.
They're not, the other guys aren't there.
Right. And Toure's there where he can play every down. And because of that, he gets to be the one to catch the option.
Yes.
There it is. Next thing I wrote down, we talked about it a little bit, but the offense finally found some rhythm and found some consistent production. Feels like it's been almost since year 1 where you've seen that kind of consistent drive to drive productivity, right? I get it. FCS opponent. We should preface everything with that. Like at the beginning of this podcast, you should be like, warning. We understand that this is an FCS opponent. The following opinions, understand and take that into like we get it, right? But it's still good
will
to
be
see.
exaggerated.
But you get it. Like here's the thing with that though, is like if they would have failed, you would have criticized them. So it kind of like it's kind of unfair that if they don't, you get to be like, ah.
I mean, in the end, it's like a W's a W.
Yeah.
What you find out, they look back at these coaches' records and they never talk about, well, Tom Osborne was 9-3, but you know what? 2 of those games were against F. Like nobody cares.
No.
You got to get your W's, and you got to like this is about getting wins and building something, right? We're building towards being better. And that's what this game let us do.
So Nebraska, I think they scored on five straight possessions at one point. They have 633 total yards. They have 52 points. Like finally, they were able to kind of get it going a little bit.
We were moving.
I didn't
the
think
ball.
they looked. I didn't think like, man, this offense, hey, bro.
Because you know what? Here's my criticism of 600 yards of offense, which is great. We're moving the ball. But the issue with that I think will linger is we don't have anybody willing to make a play, like an explosive. Like if you told me we had 600 yards and 50 points, we got to have one explosive play, right? Like one like 30, 40, 50 yard touchdown. And we just don't really have a guy to do that right now. And that's what I was talking about, bets going deeper. Man, like I'm watching these games. When you watch other games and people make big plays, it feels like it's been 2.5, 3 seasons where like especially like last week, Adrian made this. I was like, wow, we made a long touchdown run. It felt weird. Yeah. But we're so like reliant on dinking and dunking so that's where it's like, there's more chances for error. The more you don't get like the explosives.
Totally agree. It's funny, keep on kind of going there with it, but like, so now we'll go to one of the concerns because you kind of went with it. The one thing I wrote down is that I'm still not wowed by the overall team speed and the overall arsenal of weapons offensively. I haven't seen through 2 games anybody that has that home run hitter, game changing type of ability. Not saying, Toure's a good player, but that's not the same as the game-changing type guy. Like Steph looks like he's a decent player. That's different than being a game-changing home run hitter. I'm just like, to me, Nebraska, one of the overall things, like if I just turn on the film and I'm watching Nebraska, one of the first things that jump out at me is they lack speed on offense.
Yeah, the explosiveness where somebody's you mess up this guy's house calling. Right now, I'm not, it's not really there. And I think with this offense, like we got to find our spurts of that. It just makes it easier on that offense than to not have to be perfect.
Right. Because, and again, like it's good that they scored and you never wanted but the Nebraska's 5 straight scoring drives, 13 plays, 8 plays, 9 plays, 9 plays, 9 plays. Like, I actually feel like against good teams, it's going to be harder to do that.
It's hard to just build these long, like perfect drives where you do 10 plays. It's just hard.
Right.
It's, what's much easier is like every 3rd or 4th time you get like a big explosive chunk that either scores or gets you right there. So you don't have to be like, like I think it just leads to more chances for penalties and mistakes is when you're like, we always have to go 13 plays to score.
And so that's, I'm concerned about through 2 games. I would say I'm underwhelmed with the skill guys, explosiveness and game changing home run hitting ability.
And this is hard because I watched them in, 16 and 17 at UCF. And it was basically like, I feel like it was just explosion plays
galore.
It just felt like that all the time.
Well, even when you think back of watching Oregon back in the day, it just felt like there was an inevitability for a 60-yard touchdown or a 52-yard gain.
Yeah, that's like when they talk about it was such a track meet because they literally were like, well, you're going to score a lot of points, but we're going to score more. And it's just going to be like people doing this. And now it's like, I don't know that that's obviously I don't think we're trying to do that quite as much as we were initially trying to do in 18. But yeah, I think we do need to find a few guys, that they could be on this team. Like I think Betts is a deep threat. I think Alante Brown has a little juice in him. I think, we'll see. I think we got some guys that could maybe do it. We just haven't kind of found that yet. Right.
Absolutely. And so we'll see how that progresses, but through 2 games, that's a major concern for me.
Yeah.
A couple more things with the good. The defense forced turnovers, got some ways, right? I mean, JoJo Domann gets a pick. Deontay Williams has 2 interceptions, so they have 3 interceptions for the day. Obviously, that's something that is all goes into turnover margin, and a big part of what this defense is built to try to do: be disruptive, take the ball away. They were able to do that. I didn't think the pass rush was as good, which is a little concerning. Even though they were able to heat up Illinois early in the game, they weren't able to heat up Fordham as much as I thought they would. But nevertheless, defense forced some turnovers. That's good.
Yep,
that's good
for sure. Build some confidence too. Just getting those first couple turnovers on the year. I think that will be good for the games down the road.
The last 2 things I wrote down, it kind of along the lines of the Jack Daniels, Happy Gilmore moments of the game. Here comes the putter throw. But it was just in general, the guys handled adversity in the game better and handled those big moments better of where it could have gone either way. They made the plays, right? Like they blocked the field goal. Deontay Williams got the pick. JoJo Domann made the interception. They were able to go drive down and score to take advantage of, they were able to make those things happen. Obviously, that's a huge thing as well. And then the last thing is the backups got in. A lot of guys got to play, which is huge. That hasn't happened in a long time. Someone mentioned that it might have been Maryland in 2019 was the last time that they were able to kind of like empty the bench.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. Like you were able to get, now if Smothers has to come into a game, he's at least been out there before.
Yeah,
right?
Like, I don't want to go to the chiropractor again.
I would rather not have a chiropractic adjustment. But like that stuff makes a difference, right?
It does. And that's why they do it. I mean, I think Nebraska is a place that like anybody that watched games in the 90s like has such a fondness for like the like second half development of what you got to play guys a ton for a whole decade because we were kicking people's butts so bad, so that our depth became like such an asset.
Yeah, you got to see the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th string running backs. You got to see you got to see all those guys.
That was always a joy. You always loved it when like Jay Sims came in,
right, and you're like,
in 1995,
right,
and like
amazing,
yeah, had a great game, and it's like he was our 5th string running back,
right? I know, but that's where that used to be. Young Husker fans, that's how that game on Saturday was. How like every game was.
Yeah, that's why it felt so good.
So it felt great.
Yeah.
Anything I missed with the good before I go to some of the concerns? We've already hit on a couple of the concerns. Anything stand out at you? How did you feel like, real quick, the defense? How did you feel like the defense played?
I thought it was a little sloppy in the first half. I mean, they were.
When you say sloppy, what do you mean?
I saw a couple of times like D-line like got caught peeking, right? So like they're in their gap, they peek and they squirted by for some long runs, and then we were given too much cushion on a few throws, and they were getting they're picking up first down. So I mean, they were moving the ball okay
in the first quarter and a half. They moved the ball pretty good.
They did. And we were sloppy. I felt like, I was proud that they came out in this 3rd quarter, play like what they needed to do. And the game was gone. It was done after that. And so that was good, but it's also, this is not, this is not Iowa. This is like, we need to be able to do that against Michigan State and Iowa, Northwestern. And, so I think the defense still has to find, their next gear. I don't think they've hit their stride yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I'd agree. I mean, it wasn't kind of because one of the first concerns I wrote down was just like the slow start. Like what you wanted was the second that game started, it was just you established yourselves, you imposed your will, you dominated them physically from the jump. And that didn't happen really on either side of the ball. Offensively, you have the sloppy first drive. defensively, you allow Fordham to move the ball with relative regularity. I get it's not about yards, ma'am. It's about points, in the words of Bo Pelini. They still only scored 7 points. But within that slow start, one of the biggest concerns through the first 2 games, and it was really showed itself in this game to me. And it's weird to say because the team did rush for over 300 yards. I'm a little concerned about this offensive line's ability to line up and win at the point of attack.
You know what's funny is I felt the exact same way. Like I'm not seeing the push. It just feels like it's always there's a little bit too much give there, and that's concerning.
Very.
I think the guy I feel the best about is I think Juergens is the real deal. And I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like, they're all question mark. I think we were giving them a lot of like
benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, the benefit of the doubt was given to 4 guys on that line that to me I hadn't seen it before. And dude, I think that right now there's a lot to prove.
Because the first couple of especially the first drive, I mean, if you can't line up and blow Fordham off the ball, well, it's a little concerning.
On that note, okay, so this is by about the second quarter. I'm sitting next to my brother-in-law, and I'm like, "Gosh, is somebody going to block 47?" And I meant that. I've seen this guy make quite a few tackles so far. I'm like, God, 47 is just making a lot of plays. Like, we should block that guy. And I don't know that we ever got.
He was running free the whole game.
He was free, so we weren't getting to that guy. But like the fact that you can make 20 tackles and then we're like, well, now it's like we never got a hat on that guy.
Right.
And he was their best tackler by a mile and a half.
He finished with 30 tackles.
He made 30 tackles.
30.
And I'm my brother, my dad, and my uncle all called me and texted me about this 30 tackles because we're a family full of linebackers.
Right.
And we know that 30 tackles
is unheard of.
It's unheard of. If you make, my brother had 20 tackles.
I was wondering what his career high was.
20. And he made every play.
Right.
It was every single play you could make. He made. This guy made 30.
I mean, what's interesting is, see, this is what's good is like, on one hand, you do got to tip your cap to this guy, but
you're a stud if
you're
make
a stud,
30.
right? But at the same time, I think to your point, it's like, well,
if you're the offensive line, you need to.
Someone go hit that guy.
Yes, somebody get a body on that guy. And you know when you're out there, you know who made all the tackles.
Right.
You know that guy's making tackles. So they needed to be like, we need to get a hat. Like, so I don't know. I'm a little like in a weird way, I was like, tip your hat to the guy, but also the offensive line, I'm thinking,
I'm a little concerned.
We need to find it, man.
Yeah, because the one thing that the Big Ten is, in particular the Big Ten West, it's kind of a trenches conference and division.
Yeah.
And if you're not up to par in the O-line, you're probably going to have a hard time, especially when you combine that with not having, like we talked about, not having the game breaking, home run hitting, dynamic skill guys that can. Amir Abdullah was the kind of guy that could turn nothing into a 40-yard game.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like Amir was running behind a great offensive line. There were a lot of times Amir would get a handoff, there'd be a guy literally with penetration. That guy never brought him down. And then Amir could go squirt and get whatever. I don't know if Nebraska has, I shouldn't say, I don't know. I know they don't have Amir. I don't know if they have a guy that can make that play. When you combine that with the O-line, and again, what's hard is like you look at it, you go, well, they rushed for 329 yards or whatever. It's like, yeah, but
what are your eyes telling you?
Yeah, that's it. Trust. That's why stats can be a little misleading.
Yeah, man. Amir and Rex Burkhead, these are guys from the last decade. The first guy never got him.
Ever.
The first guy never got him. And that was something I noticed about him immediately. It's like the first guy never got him. And there was always a chance that like the play could get extended and after that. And like, that's what you want with your running back. It's like, they're always a threat.
And so what's hard is some of this is on the running backs, but then when you have running backs that aren't blessed with that, you better be good up front. And so far, I would say I'd put the run blocking and the ability to get a good push as one of the chief concerns moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think here's my real issue is like I had talked myself into thinking that was going to be a strength. So right now I'm not seeing it. So I think that's where, it's also, first couple games, that's part of how seasons go. I think we always forget this since it's been such a wacky couple years, but like team progresses, right? Things happen,
right.
Areas of the ball improve. And so like, we'll see what we are here in the, halfway through the year, but so far, yeah, we still have question marks.
Well, I mean, the thing to think about, and I'm not here what I'm saying, that I'm not insinuating that this is how this season's going to go. But I always think back to Minnesota's 2019 season. Minnesota starts the season, they beat South Dakota State at home by a touchdown, and it was like a last-second touchdown. They beat Fresno State in overtime, 38-35. Then they beat Georgia Southern and needed a last-second score to win 35-32. And that season, they beat Auburn in a bowl game. They finished 10th in the country. Now, I'm certainly not insinuating, my point isn't to say that I think Nebraska's heading to a top 10 ranking. My point is you can get better. Yeah. That who you are on September 4th isn't necessarily who you're going to be on October 4th, November 4th, and so on and so forth. So you hope there's some progression, but there's no question that right now there's some concerns, especially in the trenches right now.
For sure.
We actually hit on a lot of the other, because we talked about the running back situation. Still not sure about that. The skill spots and the speed, the punt returners. I don't know if it's going to be Brody Belt moving forward. We'll see. Pass rush wasn't as good as it was against Illinois. But is there any other concerns from that game that stood out to you?
No, I think this win is going to go a long way, though. That's the main theme of this pod. Probably is that we can't overemphasize what this did for the fan base, for the team. I mean, it's Fordham. Yeah, who cares, right? But this was very beneficial.
Absolutely. You're hard pressed outside of Cam Taylor-Britt, who we feel bad for, but if there's any guy we're probably not worried about, it's him. You'd imagine everybody walked off that field feeling pretty good about themselves.
Yeah.
Not saying they feel like they've arrived, but they were able to go back in the locker room, high five each other. They're taking off their pads and they're all have positive feelings.
It was doom and gloom. It was a doom and gloom week.
Yes.
Saturday to Saturday was doom and gloom until we got the W. Now it kind of just brings it back to reset. And now you're 1-1. And here's one of the biggest points. I've been watching all weekend. You get Northwestern losing, you get Wisconsin losing,
right?
You get Minnesota losing. So Iowa kicked butt. They looked really good. But you got 3 of the 4 West, and Illinois just lost. So, I mean, you got 4 losses now. So now Nebraska, instead of being in the cellar, right, they just got everybody else got conference losses too. This is good. This is good for Nebraska. It's a reset, and they're still in the Big Ten West battle. I think psychologically that's important. It was really important to see Wisconsin, Northwestern, Minnesota lose.
Well, yeah, because that's what I wrote. It's funny. I wrote down opponent watch. I wanted to wrap this up with kind of opponent watch. But you're going there. For people who didn't see it, on Friday night, Michigan State hammered Northwestern in Evanston. Yeah. Now, the good news of that is the team in your division gets a loss and they didn't look very good. The bad news of that is Michigan State's probably that game now feels like the new Illinois. That game feels huge now, because you kind of feel like next week, you don't know, you hope you better win. But that game, by the way, Buffalo beat Wagner 69-7, and they're a program that they've been winning a lot lately.
I'll tell you what, let's not overlook Buffalo, because if they just put up 69 points on anybody, I don't care, because that's you find out we couldn't do that against Fordham.
Right. So, but you think about that game, then Oklahoma, then it becomes the next time you feel like you really are going to learn something about yourself. It's probably that Michigan State game. They look pretty good. So there's a good news, bad news with that game. You pointed out Wisconsin's offense looked shaky. Now a lot of that's probably Penn State, but nevertheless, offense didn't look great. They lost. Iowa hammered Indiana, looked as good as anybody did in the first weekend. The other thing, Purdue beat Oregon State. Pretty good win. Now, Oregon State's not great, but that's a pretty good win for Purdue.
Yeah.
The other two opponent watch things to look at is, number one, Illinois lost at home to Texas San Antonio, which is like, like a little bit of a, now you get yourself into trouble. You start doing comparative scoring, but at the same time, there is like Illinois, Nebraska went to Illinois and put up 22 points.
Mm-hmm.
It was Illinois, Texas San Antonio scored in the high 30s. I'm pulling it up here. Texas San Antonio scored 37 points. And you just go, oh boy.
I don't know. One of my big takeaways from watching these Big Ten games, though, is I was watching Penn State and Wisconsin, and the refs, I'm telling you, it felt similar to what almost happened. It did happen to us, but they almost gave the game to Wisconsin with a couple terrible target where they called a guy for a targeting when the quarterback was running the ball and lowered into him, and they hit heads.
It's like
it was a big hit, and the quarterback did spun off and was fine. But they ended up reviewing it, calling it targeting, and injected the guy. It was, and then they had another terrible, timely hands to the face personal foul where they ended a drive. They were trying to give the game, just like us versus Illinois, 2 or 3 just atrocious calls. I'm so tired of refs determining the game with these big personal foul,
targeting, late hit,
and personal fouls. Those need to not be the reason why you win and lose games. And they're too frequently the reason.
Right.
And that is, I was frustrated for Penn State because I was like, this is terrible. It's a terrible call.
Right.
And they need to stop that because that's how the games are. It shouldn't be how games are determined.
Agree. But nevertheless, but here's the thing what's hard is I don't want to be disingenuous. I think we all left that Illinois-Nebraska game thinking I still think Nebraska, I think if they lined up and played again, I'd pick Nebraska to win the game.
That's big because we watched how it happened.
That's why I'm not, it's not good for Nebraska just for the psyche, but am I stunned that Texas San Antonio went to Illinois and won? I am not, because I did not think Illinois was very good.
No, Illinois, and we bring some of this on ourselves, but everything went perfect. Remember when he drops in a perfect pass and we fumble it, bounces to. This is what happens, right? It's our own fault in a lot of ways, but it went right for Illinois. Well, Illinois being Illinois on the regular, they're about as good as they can. Their level of talent is they can lose this Texas San Antonio and they can beat us when it's going right. But that's who they are. And that's exactly what we probably thought they would be.
That's exactly right. So, but nevertheless, you see that, you go, ugh.
But I would have been it's probably.
I wasn't surprised by it at all. The other thing that was at least kind of interesting, Tulane almost beat Oklahoma. And the thing that's even more interesting is that game was supposed to be at Tulane, but the hurricane and all that stuff, they relocate. It had to get moved to Norman, Oklahoma. And it makes you wonder if now, not everything always plays out exactly how you think it's going to, but if that game's not in Norman, Oklahoma, does Oklahoma lose that game? Maybe. But the bottom line is it wasn't like Oklahoma. Now, I still think Oklahoma's going to hammer Nebraska, hammer them. But it wasn't like Oklahoma looked out of this world unbeatable in that first game.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, when you do the opponent watch thing, you go down the list, there's some games that look a little harder than you thought. There's some games that look a little easier than you thought, and everything in between. So the bottom line is Nebraska, this game served its purpose. They needed to get to 1-1. And now this game, Buffalo, I'm nervous for this. This is you better not. If anybody thinks that Buffalo is going to come in here and Nebraska is going to just hammer, I don't know what to tell you.
I hope we don't overlook that. That's where the Fordham game, even itself, well, we're going to win by 50 no matter what. I don't say that ever anymore. I don't care if it's Fordham or if it's Buffalo. we got to just be like, every W we can get, we have to play like it's the last game of the year.
This game against Fordham was the closest thing to you're assuming that Nebraska is going to win the game.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming for 1 second that Nebraska is going to beat Buffalo. I'm telling you that right now. If we're here 1 week from now talking about Buffalo beating Nebraska, will I be heartbroken and frustrated and say yes? But will I be surprised? I will not be surprised. No. Because that's kind of where Nebraska's at right now.
But I think that should be for every team around the country. If you're not Alabama and you should basically be every game you could get beat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Montana beat Washington, I think, last night. Wow. I mean, you've seen a lot of quote unquote upsets. Kind of that happen. It happens more than you think. You know,
I think there's just the parodies is great.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got guys, they got homeboys, you got homeboys at Fordham getting 30 tackles in a game. How sore? Are you really sore after a 30 tackle game? Or if you're like, or was he running so clean that like, if you get a clean shot at somebody, does it hurt as much?
I think it hurts more when you're the runner, probably.
That's what I would have always
thought. You're running back
like,
after 30 carries, like you're getting hit.
Yeah.
In your legs. And yeah, I think it's.
So you think he's probably hanging in there today or what?
30 tackles.
30 tackles is a lot of tackles, man.
Crack a beer and
a beer and a Gatorade, call it a day. You know, you're probably pretty good. Anything we missing, pal? We get it. We hit everything there.
Were thorough. It was a great win.
Yeah.
Huskers are back on track now.
Yep.
It's
1-1. I mean,
jump.
Go beat Fordham or go beat Buffalo. Then we'll cross the Oklahoma Bridge when it comes. But until then, I mean, let's just hope there's not any more putter throws or whiskey moments here.
And here comes the putter throw.